What's up guys, Christopher Christ Point, and welcome back to the channel. And today we'll be taking a look at the iPhone 15. Now, I've been using this iPhone 15 for about 2 months now. Got this back in middle of November, and in this video we'll be talking about my experience using this as my daily driver in all aspects based on how I used my previous iPhones in contrast to the now. And of course, we'll be answering the question if this is a good smartphone to buy or purchase in 2024, and if this is right for you or not. So with that said, let's do this. Alright, so this is the iPhone 15. This comes in different color variants, which we have here is the blue one. There's also a black, green, yellow, and pink. And because the majority didn't like the blue color variant, I went for the blue variant because I was such a rebel, which I regretfully chose because I honestly prefer the pink one over the blue one, but doesn't matter at this point. As far as the unboxing is concerned, the only real difference here is the charging cable. Unlike the previous ones that it comes with a rubber type cable, this time around we have a braided Type-C cable. That's just it. I honestly think it's a nice move because it adds some form of elevation of what comes in the box. But from a realistic standpoint, I honestly didn't like it as much because these things get dirty easily. Now, as far as the device is concerned, I wouldn't say that there is a big change, to be honest. As a matter of fact, it looks exactly like the iPhone 14. There's just some minor elements that makes it different, particularly the edges, because it has a slight curvature to it, and it's really hard to express or mention this on camera. You'd have to feel it in person for you to get the idea of what a lot of people have been saying about this curved body. So in terms of buttons and layouts and whatnot, they're all the same, just like with the previous versions. One aspect that makes this different is that the back portion is frosted. Usually the frosted back only applies to the Pro variants, but this time around we also have the same treatment with the base model. It actually has a nice touch to it, which means I don't necessarily need to use a case for this. It's anti-fingerprint, anti-smudge, so I can really use this bare bones, no cases whatsoever. Probably the most noticeable aspect of the iPhone 15 would be the weight. See, last year in 2023, I shifted from an iPhone 13 to an iPhone 14 Pro, and that Pro was just god-awful heavy. So coming from a 14 Pro to an iPhone 15, you can really tell the difference in terms of the weight. Even if you slap on a case, the 15 still doesn't feel as heavy in contrast to a Pro that doesn't have a case on. Now, much like the previous iPhones, including the 14, the 13, the 12, and so on, the iPhone 15 comes with a 6.1-inch Super Retina XDR OLED display. In other words, it's just an OLED panel, but it jumps up to 2000 nits peak brightness. Basically means you can see this outdoors with no problems, even under direct sunlight. Of course, in a nutshell, if you're going to be using this indoors, it's going to be a lot easier, be it for gaming or watching content, no problems whatsoever. The only drawback that a lot of people have been commenting on with the iPhone 15 is the fact that it doesn't have a high refresh rate screen. Personally, I don't really care if it does come with or without, because I've used flagship phones in the past, including the iPhone 14 Pro as well as the Galaxy S23 Ultra, which both came with high refresh rates, and you will notice the sudden drop in frame rates the moment you use a base model iPhone, but after a week or so, your eyes eventually adjust to it, to the point that you no longer notice it. And unlike Android phones, the animation sequence that you're seeing whenever you utilize an iPhone has always been smooth, excellent if you will. So with or without the high refresh rates, the screen on the base model iPhone is still a pleasure to look at. Now, just like with previous smartphones I've acquired over time for the past few years, the most common thing I would do, especially if the smartphone is that expensive, is to invest on a case. One downside of the iPhone 15 that I've noticed in contrast to the 14 or the 13, there's not much options out there. Now, when I say options, it's more of the color variants as opposed to the model or the design. There are a lot of designs coming from brands like UAG or Spigen, but in terms of having to add your own personal touch to it by choosing your preferred color, there's not much options out there. And because cases like that are relatively expensive, and getting cases from Apple is not really the way to go in a realistic sense, I was able to acquire a few cases from Muft. First is the Movaz Snap Phone case, which is basically your leather type case, which personally is one of my favorites because it's durable, lightweight, and very stylish. Now, of course, in the odd chance that I'm going to be doing a lot of activities outdoors, I also got the Snap Phone case with enhanced MagSafe capabilities. So this is more of a durable or enduring type of case, if you will. Now I did make a separate video that talks about these cases. I'll just post a link somewhere. In terms of gaming, the iPhone 15 is no slouch. This backs in the same Apple A16 Bionic chip found on the 14 Pro from last year. That's paired with 6GB of RAM and a 5-core graphics GPU. In a nutshell, the gaming performance that you'll get on an iPhone 15 is very much at par with other flagship smartphones in the market. Take for instance, Call of Duty Mobile. So in the Android world, Call of Duty Mobile can be quite demanding in terms of the performance. But as you can see on the iPhone 15, I'm able to maximize every single graphical setting possible, giving me the best enjoyable experience playing Call of Duty Mobile. And take note, given that the iPhone 15 doesn't have a high refresh rate, I'm still able to max out the frame rates when I'm playing games. So to me, that's a win. That's a major win because I did not have to pay top dollar flagship prices and settle for an iPhone 15, but still get to have the same flagship grade experience when playing games. So for the benchmark junkies, I'll post the benchmark test results using the iPhone 15 for your reference. But please do note, this is not going to determine if the iPhone is great or not. This is just a synthetic benchmark, which means it doesn't apply in the real world. Now, I'm going to be doing a separate video for the camera performance because that is an entirely different story altogether. But to put things into perspective, after having to use the iPhone 15 for about 2 months, it's a bit of a mixed bag for me, to be honest. See, this time around, I acquired 2 iPhones, one in green, one in blue. And I haven't really been using both heavily because I have a MacBook and I'm always working. So there's really not much time for me to use the smartphones. One thing I noticed that it was a bit off was the battery health. Considering that there is light to moderate use on both these devices, the battery health on my blue iPhone 15 dropped to 98%. Whereas on the green iPhone, which is what I use normally when I take videos, is still at 100%. So I'm not really sure what the whole shebang is with these things, but that's basically what's been happening, which is kind of difficult for me to pinpoint as to what is causing the issue versus what's the real deal with this battery health thing with iPhones recently. Alright, so let's talk about my verdict. Is the iPhone 15 worth it in 2024? To put it simple, if you're not using an iPhone and you want to dip into iPhones, then yes, it's the best iPhone to get in 2024. However, if you're using an iPhone 14, a 13, a 12, I advise you to wait for the iPhone 16. There's really not much going on in terms of upgrades, probably with app loading times. But as far as the actual performance of the device, there's not much going on. If you're using an 11 or an XR, then yes, it is a great upgrade because those 2 devices will soon reach their end of life, and when that happens, your device is now prone to getting hacked. Now, I wouldn't say that you will get hacked if you're using an XR or an 11, but you're more prone to getting, viruses and stuff like that because those 2 devices will soon no longer be receiving security updates. So if you want to save money or you're tight on a budget in 2024, the most affordable iPhone you should consider is an iPhone 12. If you can squeeze a little bit more, then get a 13. Now, as far as pricing is concerned, I got the iPhone 15 for 61,990 pesos. This is from Power Mac Center. I can drop the links in the description on where you can get them or perhaps where you can reach out to them, to double check the availability and stuff like that. But as far as I know, if you buy this straight cash, there will be a substantial discount to be applied, which could lower the price down. And if you're actually curious about the cases that I've mentioned in this video, I'll drop the links in the description down below. Now, if this is your first time on the channel, consider subscribing. If you did enjoy this casual review video, at least my impressions of using this as my daily driver for the past few months, give it a thumbs up. Comment below if you have any questions or inquiries, or probably if you have the same experience as I do. I'd very much appreciate it. Well, let's have a conversation down below. Again, this is Chris once again from Crisis Point. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next.